Hello again, Doug Smith. Welcome back to Portsmouth This Week. This is the 25 March 2016 edition of Portsmouth This Week. It's also Good Friday, and we have some special guests here today that have been on the show several times, but I'd like to welcome back State Representative and Majority Whip Jay Edwards, who represents Tiverton and Portsmouth District 70, and Portsmouth Town Council President Keith Hamilton. Welcome back to the show, gentlemen.
It's good to be back.
Thank you. I thought what we do, there's so many issues out there that you both are dealing with in your various jobs. I thought I'd just kind of roll through those and ask you to comment briefly on what you think about them. Sure. I know that's hard.
There's some very involved issues here.
Yeah, they are, and nothing is simple, and that's kind of part of the problem. People want a simple answer with it, but they aren't. Let me first ask you about the whole Roadworks truck tolls thing. My question would be to both of you guys, you think it's going to work as advertised?
Yes, I voted for it, and one of the reasons I voted for it is because we need to fix our roads and bridges. They're the worst in the country.
No question about that.
And one of the bigger reasons why I voted for it is because we need to fix the roads and bridges, we need to pay for them. At the same time, there's no tolls here in the East Bay, which is something I fought very hard to make sure there wasn't going to be.
Yeah, and I think that's still a concern to some people, but anyway, Keith, what's your view?
My concern is that I think the money was available in the budget. Honestly, if the governor had thought that this was the issue that it is, she could have last year put $40 million in the budget, and we could have been $80 million ahead of the game at this point in time. I feel that as DOT stands right now, that throwing more money at them until it's reorganized and fixed is not going to solve our issues. And let's put all the money at the road and bridges where they belong, not creating a boulevard in Providence.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with all of that. One of my concerns is one of the reasons our roads and bridges are in such terrible shape is because the same people have been repairing them over the years. So I just hope there's more oversight this time and they do a better job. There's no question that it's vitally important we fix our infrastructure.
Part of the Roadworks program is that they have to come quarterly to the General Assembly and tell us what they're doing. We have oversight over them because of this program.
Okay.
And going back to your point about, let's get it out of the budget. If you want to cut $100 million out of our budget, the only people who are going to be truly affected are the people who can least afford it, the people who have no voice in the General Assembly, the people who have developmental disabilities, the old. Those are the people who will be areas that we'd be cutting out of the legislature. You're not going to be going after anything else because everyone else has a very strong voice and a very strong lobby.
Well, let me sort of wedge that down a little bit if I could. I guess the question is this infrastructure repair money that will generate from the tolls. Does any of that go towards stuff on the island here, the Quidnick Island?
Eventually, well, yes.
Because I know that the TIP program, our part of it, has been shoved forward a bit. We expected some road repaving. We expected to look at fixing East Main Road with a couple roundabouts, things like that. And they've all been pushed off due to other priority issues in the state. So eventually some of that money is going to get here to fix our
Starting next year. The councilman asked me to have a meeting with DOT, which I did, to go through some of the programs that they are looking at in Portsmouth. And they're going to advertise this fall the project going from Boys Lane to Turnpike Avenue. They're going to mill and repave all of that, putting in new sidewalks, new curbs. So that whole East Main Road project is going to start next year.
Oh, okay. For some reason I thought it was pushed off 5 years.
Well, the issue is that those are the projects that should have been done 2-3 years ago that have been in the TIP program. The governor took over and reorganized the entire TIP program and took it from a 4-year TIP to a 10-year TIP and pulled a lot of those projects out. Projects that had ADA compliance monies already applied to it. So I go back to let's fix DOT first, see where the money has gone and why it hasn't been used properly before we start throwing more money at the problem.
Yeah. Well,
I think DOT is actually being reorganized right now. I had a long conversation with them this week, and they've gone to a project management system, which they're only the third group in the entire country to do that. Most of them run through with a construction management program and a project engineers. So no one's ultimately responsible. They've taken the project management approach where they have someone who is responsible for a project who has to answer for that project. So I think that's a good approach.
Well, as long as we can hold these people accountable for it. That's
sounds kind of like a new concept for Rhode Island, but I look forward to seeing the oversight that you guys
in construction, which I do every day. I mean, we have project managers. I am a project manager in my other job, and I am ultimately responsible for any project I do, for the loss, the gain, whatever. But when they have a problem on a project, they come to me. And that's what we need in this state. We need someone we can go to and say, what is going on with this project?
Step up and say,
Yes.
take responsibility. Absolutely. Another kind of not related to that exactly, but it's the Newport Bridge scofflaws, if you like, the people that go through the bridge without paying tolls and end up with 20 or 30 of these things. I guess RITPA wants to be able to go to the DMV and say, you're not going to get your license next time until you pay these things. What do you guys think?
That was a leadership bill we put through for the Turnpike and Bridge Authority. They have no way to put legislation through,
Right,
so
right.
I actually had to sponsor that for them. The reason they need that is so we'll have reciprocity with all our surrounding states that use Easy Pass. Because right now, if you run our bridges here, if you're from New York, we have no way to gain that money. And the same thing happens with New York. If you run the bridge in New York, they have no way to get access to us. So that will give our Easy Pass system reciprocity with all the surrounding states.
Okay, do other states do the similar thing?
Yes.
Okay, it goes right to the DMV.
Goes right to the DMV.
Yeah, interesting. Let's see if it works. I'd like to see that.
If people are breaking the law, they should be held accountable.
Absolutely.
I do 50,000 miles a year. I go through toll gantries every day. So I make sure that
You
mine are
pay
paid.
your fair share, so
I unfortunately do.
we all
You know,
do.
that sometimes at $10 or $15 a whack going through New York City.
Yeah, yeah, it's very expensive down
It
there,
is.
and people complain about our state putting tolls. You know, every state tries to generate revenue from that. Another bill that's floating around is the cell phone bill about no use of cell phones in cars. How do you guys feel about that?
It should be hands-free, 100%. Most new cars these days have the hands-free option where, I mean, I can dial my phone.
Yeah.
I can push a button and call John Edwards on my phone.
Yeah.
I have the same thing. I drive equally as much miles as Keith does, and I would want someone to be paying attention to the road and not to their phone.
Yeah, we see them every day. I mean, they're slow, driving slow, they got something in their ear. They're not even looking at the road.
No.
Yeah, swerving back and forth. But I mean, it goes along the whole line. I mean, it falls under distracted driving. And, you know,
Yeah.
people who drive with their dogs on their laps and other things like that. I mean, it's
Incredible stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, absolutely.
And these people aren't brain surgeons. They do not need to be on the phone.
Yeah, it's not. They're not saving the world. or
No,
anything.
they're not. They can wait to talk about their laundry or their
Yeah.
you know, the needs for kitchen.
We don't want to talk about Facebook, though. So. What about the bill itself? You think will that go? Do you think is that?
I think it's a possibility. I
Okay.
mean, there's a lot of positive momentum for that bill in the House.
Yeah, to be honest, it seems like a no-brainer, but I guess there are some.
The only thing I wouldn't want to see police checkpoints like they do in New York City, where they literally stand over the cars, and if you touch your phone, they will give you a ticket.
Yeah,
You know, we don't have to become that big of a nanny state, but people shouldn't be driving and texting at the same time.
Absolutely.
Or on the
Connecticut's
phone.
done a pretty good job with it.
Yeah.
yeah. Let me just throw this one up. Ethics reform. Are we going to see anything this year? Do you think, in terms of ethics reform?
Not really sure. If we do see ethics reform, it's something we'll vote out in both chambers and the government will sign. But then eventually it has to go to the voters. It's a constitutional change, and only the voters can change our Constitution.
Okay. I mean, the thing is, it seems to me, from the town's perspective, whenever they go through this stuff, all you see is more meetings that you have to go to.
Not in terms of ethics. The General Assembly is the only body or only elected officials in the state that don't fall under the Ethics Committee.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's really zero reason for it. They hold the purse strings of the state. They are the highest target for, let's say, corruption. Not that we've had any of that in Rhode Island.
No.
But
It's been on the local level as well.
yeah, but anybody who's elected, you know, it's a $1,500 a year job. General Assembly's $15,000 a year job, but they don't fall under the same ethics laws.
Yeah.
I think it should be passed out of the General Assembly this year, and I think it should be on the ballot this year in November for it to be voted on.
Okay.
I voted for it the last time we had it on the floor. So
Okay,
I
let's see
believe
where
in
it
ethics
goes. I
reform.
think a lot of people were looking at that. And, you know, I mentioned this last week. Rhode Island really is a joke when it comes to ethics in government. I mean, when I say a joke, other states make fun of us because
Actually,
there's
I
a
disagree with
perception.
that, Doug.
It's a perception, though.
I mean, we have the third most transparent General Assembly in the country. People have access to us immediately. They can see our votes immediately. We actually have received awards because of it. So we are light years ahead of other states as far as what you can see and how you can interact with your legislators right now.
Well,
But to Doug's point, I think it's the stuff that doesn't get seen is the issue, and that's where the Ethics Commission comes
And we don't want to talk about 38 studios or anything
No.
like that, so.
No, but I will give Representative Edwards credit. He did put a bill in today that, or this week, that got passed. That's just out of the House, or is it passed out of the Senate as well?
That's out of the House.
Okay,
To rein in the quasi-political groups out there.
Good.
That super PACs and things like that they have to report under campaign finance. And,
Yeah.
and honestly, while we're on it, if you owe money to the Campaign Finance Authority for fines, you shouldn't be allowed to run for office. So people who are out there with $5, $10, $15, $30,000 who are sitting on a council or a General Assembly seat shouldn't be able to run again until those are cleaned up.
yeah.
And it's so easy to clean up.
It is.
You just pay the fine, or you can appeal them.
Yeah. I mean, I've made my mistake. I haven't gotten mine in, and I've wrote my $25 check and said I'm sorry and moved on.
I have done the same.
Yeah, but many people are up there with just it's just rolling and rolling and rolling, and they don't pay it. And
Yeah.
you should not be allowed to be put on a ballot afterwards.
Okay,
And you
Jay,
have council members in Providence with the same problem.
Absolutely.
keep
Absolutely.
your pedal to the metal, as we say, Jay. Because that's one I think everybody is, at least at the resident level, are concerned about. There's a bill going up that Dan Riley brought up, a requirement for an inspector general. What do you guys think about that?
Go ahead.
I think it's a great idea.
I mean, would that be another way to kind of get at this kind of stuff?
I think it's a great way to look and see if there's misuse or mismanagement of funds. We continually see it. That
Okay.
Even the little amounts can add up to a lot.
Okay,
I find
Jay.
the only biggest drawback with this is it's going to create another bureaucracy. Creates another level where you're hiring full-time people. I think it's a great concept, but I don't think we can afford to add more people to our state budget, and that's what this would do. If there were a way to pull people out of different groups and have them cloistered off to be in this Inspector General, I think that would work, but we can't create any more state government.
How about subbing it out to a qualified firm?
That might work. But the last thing I want to see is more state employees.
I don't disagree with you, but I think that within the state budget we could probably find it and at least maybe look at a way to bring in a qualified CPA firm, a nationally known CPA firm, to go through the books and see what they find.
We had an auditor just this last week
Right.
finish their audit in the state budget, and they found $200 million we overpaid Medicaid. So we do have outside sources looking at the state budget.
Yeah.
That's a good step.
It is a good step.
Another issue that probably relates to this thing about creating another bureaucracy is the legalizing marijuana issue. I know you were recently in Colorado. Can you give us a short version of what you learned that we can use here?
You don't want to rush into it. There's a lot of money involved in setting it up, and I don't think Rhode Island is going to take in the sort of funds that they're expecting to take in. When it's all said and done, I think we're going to come out maybe $20, $30 million ahead, but there's $50, $60 million everyone keeps purporting. We're going to spend a lot of that money just setting up and administering the program.
Up front,
Yes. And yearly.
Keith?
I'm just against the legalization of marijuana, period. So I understand it for people who have medical conditions and need it for their medical to ease their pain or the suffering that they have, but I feel it's a gateway drug and it shouldn't be utilized on a recreational basis.
Okay, I think these two positions will probably be what we'll be hearing over the coming months on this.
I think one of the things you're going to see this year is I think we'll put a non-binding referendum to the state voters and see where the people in the state are with it. When I think that'll give us a good measure
Yeah.
of where this is going to go.
Absolutely. I think it does make sense to go to the voters on issues like that, big ones. How about driver's license for illegal immigrants?
Not going to happen.
Okay.
Shouldn't happen. If you're breaking the law, again, I'll go back to
Yeah.
people running for office who haven't paid their fines. If you're not here legally, you should not have a license to drive.
Totally agree.
Okay. That was easy. Okay. Tax on marijuana plants?
Governor's got this one wrong. These are the people who can least afford
Seems
to pay
like
anything.
you're squeezing, you're
Squeezing the poor people who need this to even get up in the morning. And
Yeah.
Keith, I'm sure you're aware of it, we have a lot of people in Tiverton and Portsmouth who have growing plants for themselves and for other people. They cannot afford a $150, $200 tax on a plant. It's just wrong.
Yeah.
There's plenty of other ways to save money or make other money in the budgets. just by lowering the sales tax and bringing more business into the state.
So is that dead in the water? And
Well, it's part of the governor's budget, and I think she's going to find this year that her budget's not going to go through as smoothly as she had anticipated, and it will be revised. This, I think, will be one of the clear revisions.
And Jay mentioned earlier about hurting the people in the budget who can at least afford it, and these are the people who can at least afford it. Not only they are in pain every morning when they're waking up, but they don't have the ability sometimes to be able to get up and go to work.
Yeah, well, at one point, I don't know if it was this year, it might have been last year, the town was looking at putting a tax.
The reason behind that was if there was an increase, if having the Compassion Center here in Portsmouth showed an increase of the use of marijuana within the town, that some of that money from the Compassion Center, not necessarily from the people who utilize the product, should go to help fund the ability to keep kids off of drugs.
Have we seen that? I don't know.
No.
We have enough data yet? Or?
No. I believe there has been an increase in the marijuana use around town, unfortunately with our younger kids. It's unfortunate, and we need to continue to support our prevention coalition to make sure that they are able to help keep the kids off of drugs and alcohol.
This needs to be a statewide problem, though.
It
It's
is.
not just limited to Portsmouth. We have the same issues in Dearborn and Little Compton as well.
Yeah, part of it is there's really a lack of control on the home growers, and they make extra products, and then it finds its way out into the streets.
Yeah.
It's
Well, that's one of the issues that legalizing marijuana would have to address too. Is
Again, not a simple issue, and
No.
I think they really need to think this out.
absolutely. Okay, one that's I think one of your favorites, Jay, is Secundit Bridge demolition. You're at the forefront of this.
2017.
2017.
Yes. I have
Okay, well,
been
that's-
assured by DOT that what they're going to do is they're going to first take down the superstructure, all the metal that we see, and they're hoping in that process they'll have finally resolved the issue with the sea turtles and the North Atlantic sturgeon, so that they can get into the concrete bases. But they are going to start taking down the superstructure next year.
Two things that haven't been seen in the Sconneck River in hundreds of years.
Probably
Never
not.
seen
I was
one.
going to
Sea
say,
turtle or sturgeon.
Really?
They say they supposedly have them here.
But
I've
Has
never
anybody
seen one.
actually seen a sea turtle?
I will go back to my original comments of controlling, making sure DOT is reorganized to understand where the money goes, because that bridge should have been down as soon as the other one opened up.
Don't disagree. The previous administration didn't do a good job. They should have started the permitting process on the demolition the day they started the construction of the new bridge, and they didn't. They really dropped the ball, and unfortunately now we're left with the remains of the bridge.
Okay, but going forward, you'll have oversight
Yes.
of this, so that's a good thing. School funding formula, one of the perennial things, is on the town's list, our town's list, and the school committee's list for that matter, is the issue of the school funding formula and how Portsmouth gets penalized for this. Is there any, I know there's a new formula that's been put forward up there. I'm not sure what the details are, but is there any chance that might change a little bit so we stop losing money every year?
Well, the governor proposed this thing. We give you $300 back, you get like $350. It was pretty inane. I didn't think it was a real fix, but we have people in the House and the Senate side who have been studying this, and I think you're going to see first an approach towards the charter schools where if the child goes to a charter school, not all the money goes with the child. I think that's going to be the first approach we have. And then secondly, I think over the next year or two, we're going to look at funding the rural and suburban school systems, because Providence, Warwick, Cranston, Pawtucket are taking in the lion's share. Tiverton and Portsmouth really get, like most of the rural towns, get neglected.
Yeah.
So we are very in tune with that, and we're very sensitive to it. So we are trying to resolve that issue.
Yeah, and that's been a town council concern as well.
It's, I referred to it as the inequitable funding formula. It's taken $250,000 a year out of the Portsmouth School Department's budget and added $3 million a year to the cities of Providence and Warwick and Cranston.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending battle with suburban towns who do their budgets well and get penalized for it, where other towns who have budget issues continue to get rewarded by changes in state law and general assembly funding. It hurts the property tax owners here in Portsmouth.
Sort of unrelated, but maybe related in some ways, topic is the topic of economic development, particularly here on the island and particularly here in Portsmouth. Number one, how do you feel about Governor Armando's plan to, improve our basic infrastructure, our knowledge base going forward, improve the economy of the state, make us
I think
more
she's
competitive.
trying to take a shotgun approach almost. She's hitting a lot of different things, and I think in the House, we're looking at focusing on certain issues, and one of the issues we're looking to focus on is education and our infrastructure. Those are the two keys, we think. You have good infrastructure, you'll bring business here. If you have good educated workers, you'll bring business here. Without both those items, people aren't going to bring their factories and their facilities and their brain trust to Rhode Island.
Yeah, one of the issues always is we want business development to help our tax situation and everything else. But there are only certain kinds of businesses we really want here. We don't want big box stores, and Portsmouth I'm talking about.
And Tiverton.
And Tiverton probably too, yeah. So there's kind of a finite, relatively small group of businesses we'd like to have come here. What can we do? What can we do at the town level to improve, Portsmouth for some of these companies? I think we're looking at high-tech office kind of things.
Well, the hard part in Portsmouth is that we have a real finite amount of commercial space and commercial land available to put businesses on. Now we have 3 big buildings over at Raytheon that are currently empty. In fact, I had Bill Clark, who was then our business development director, reach out to Citizens Bank when they started looking for their new property to say, hey, let's try and get Citizens over here. We have a perfect building and the land already going. But unfortunately, a lot of it is people won't drive over a bridge to come to Portsmouth.
Yeah, and I think if people don't realize that we pay a penalty for living on the island, look at the gas prices.
Yes.
Between here, this island, and off the island, it's like
Just between here and
20
Bristol.
cents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, between here and the Mass line.
Yeah. Kind of related to that is the enterprise zone, and there's a bill that's moving forward, I guess, House 7126. What's the status, and where's it going?
Well, it was held for further study. We're looking at a bunch of different municipal bills. This is one of our, from the delegation standpoint, this is one of our top bills for the town of Portsmouth.
Yeah.
They asked us to put it in, and we're going to go to the mat for the town on this particular issue because the town feels it's important, and we feel it's an important thing for the town.
Yeah, and I've seen analysis that shows that the overall, over time, the benefits outweigh the possible cost of this thing, loss in tax revenues initially, perhaps. So do you think that's going to go forward then?
Yeah, I think Jim 70 did a great job when he came up to the State House and testified on it. I think he made a really good case for it, and I think the leadership's going to look down on this, upon this bill and say it's a favorable bill for the town of Portsmouth.
Yeah, one of the issues that was brought up by Senator Pagliarini and Dan Riley last week was that Providence seems to be getting all the Portsmouth's cost, which I didn't understand at all. We know that the system works in our town. Mm-hmm. It has worked before. So I applaud your efforts, and please keep going on it.
The Providence system is completely different than what we're looking to do.
Yeah, I think it's like mixing apples and oranges.
It is. Our system is very basic.
Very straightforward.
If an organization wants to come here from Portsmouth from outside of the state, we're not stealing businesses from other towns, or if they want to expand their business, which is even better. If a New England Boat Works wants to make their buildings bigger and bring on more people to work, for that portion that they expand, not their entire facility, they can get a tax break for 5 years, which steps down every year. If they don't have that tax break, maybe they don't expand, so we're not really losing money.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to expand if they don't get that little bit of assistance.
Right. And that's an incentive certainly to come here, I think, as well.
From outside the state,
yes.
Yeah.
We're not going to be taking businesses from Tiverton or Bristol to move them over here and give them a tax advantage.
Now, I understand that Lou DePalma has submitted a similar bill or a companion bill in the Senate.
Yes, he did.
And explain to me how this is going to work out over time. So there's a bill in the House, mm-hmm. There's a bill in the Senate. They both get heard by their respective bodies.
And then they cross.
Okay.
And then the companion bill in the House, the companion bill in the Senate get heard by the opposite chamber. They get voted on, they get voted out, they go to the governor, both of them get signed.
Okay.
In theory, you really only need one bill.
Yeah.
One bill needs to go from one chamber to the other chamber to the governor. That's how it really works. But I guess years ago that the chambers were competing, members are competing for getting stuff passed, so they ended up with having a bill in each of the chambers.
So it's essentially but it's majority vote.
Yes.
Basically, simple majority.
If it gets out of the committee that it goes to.
Yeah.
And that's one of the
I
main
think-
stumbling blocks at the
Yeah, I
General
think when
Assembly.
you say it's being set aside for further study, to many of us, sounds like, no, we're not going to get to it this year.
Well, no, disagree. We've had a number of bills. I've even introduced legislation that you put it in and there are unintended consequences. They have lawyers go through these things. They look at them really closely so that we don't bring something to the floor that has a flaw.
Yeah.
So we do go through, I mean, that bill you talked about earlier, we had some major changes in the timing of how the reporting was going to be done. And that wouldn't have been picked up if we had just passed the bill out of committee immediately.
And we were talking about this earlier, is the idea that these are really difficult issues. They're complex. They have a lot of, and the problem is people want sound bites. You know, they want the short answer. And a lot of these things, you can't look at it that way.
And I think a lot of the problems we face today are because bills in the
Right,
past
exactly.
5,
Still
10,
living with
15,
that.
20 years ago were passed without that foresight and to make sure that there aren't the unintended consequences.
Yeah, I got a couple quick issues I want to throw in. We're talking, this is interesting stuff. What about the unified auto tax?
That is something you don't want to have if you're Portsmouth or Tiverton.
Nope.
That's great for Providence, terrible for us.
Yeah.
It would raise the taxes on somebody here at $14 a thousand, which would be leveled out. We would have to figure out how to do that, but it's a bad bill, and it's just somebody trying to fix his own issue.
Local
It's a
area.
Providence rep.
Yeah. He's trying to fix his own issue, lower his taxes.
Yeah. Another issue, and this relates kind of to the Governor Raimondo's plan to make us more competitive, I guess, is the high-speed internet, which we've got here. It's on the island. It can be used for, I guess, civic,
Municipal purposes.
municipal purposes. What are your thoughts on how this can help? You know, businesses, schools.
Unfortunately, until we get a full-scale fiber optic cable that can be utilized by the businesses on the island, and it has to be put in by a private company, whether
Yeah.
it be Cox or National Grid or Verizon, it's tough. We're limited. And a lot of our businesses, when you look at the Navy base and Raytheon, are based off of that type of technology that is needed these days.
Yeah.
So we definitely need to look into, that's part of the infrastructure bringing. Infrastructure doesn't mean just roads and bridges.
No.
It also means the electrical and the internet structure.
I think it also means kids that understand how to use all this stuff and education that supports that, you know. in
I
that
think we
sense.
have the kids here, but
Yeah.
we're losing a lot of kids that get educated at Brown and PC or URI to out-of-state companies because they're not here, and because our climate isn't agreeable to the businesses that come here.
Yeah. Any thoughts at the state level?
No, I agree with
Can
Keith.
you fix anything for us?
On the internet issue, no, it's just it's a private industry that has to go in and do the infrastructure. It's like putting in drainage ditches.
Yeah.
They're required, and someone's going to have to pay for it. Yeah. But I think we need to fix our infrastructure, otherwise we won't be attracting those high-paying jobs.
Absolutely. Guys, we're just about out of time, and I'd like to thank both of you for coming in. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. And I'd like to wish you and your families a happy Easter.
Same to you, Doug.
And for those of you in our viewing audience, happy Easter to you too. We'll see you next time on Portsmouth This Week.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Portsmouth This Week is a regular program on Newport County Television that brings you important information on town organizations and policies and discussions with town leaders and other important decision makers. A listing of program times is available on Cox Cable Channel 17 or at the program listing website. A listing of all programs with YouTube links is also available at the Portsmouth Town website.